Dear brothers and sisters, surely you've noticed that BBC News Africa recently released a 3-part documentary about the life of TB Joshua. For those who don't have time to watch the full 50-minute documentary, we've prepared a brief summary for each part. In this summary, you'll find the key information from the BBC News Africa documentary condensed into a much shorter time frame. Enjoy listening. May the Lord grant you spiritual discernment as you listen to this message.
First part. Rachel from the UK shares a harrowing story of unwittingly becoming involved in a cult led by Prophet TB Joshua. She emphasizes that nobody would knowingly join such a group, describing how the cult infiltrated her mind and caused her to lose her sense of self. Rachel mentions that they are in training as evangelists under Prophet TB Joshua, who is portrayed as a manipulative figure with a list of presidents in his pocket. Rachel expresses a profound sense of unease and disturbance, describing her descent into a metaphorical rabbit hole of horror. Rachel alludes to the fear within the cult, suggesting that some members are living in constant fear for their lives due to potential retribution. She accuses Prophet TB Joshua of perpetrating crimes on a global scale for over 30 years and admits to being a serial killer, attributing her actions to the cult's influence. The narrative shifts to Rachel's personal background, growing up in a happy family in the UK. However, tragedy struck when her mother passed away from breast cancer, leaving Rachel with deep-rooted pain and fear. She details her involvement in the charismatic Christian movement, expressing disappointment in the lack of miracles and healings despite strong beliefs in such occurrences. Despite the seriousness of her experiences, Rachel reflects on her initial decision to follow God and take life seriously. The text leaves readers with a sense of Rachel's complex journey, from a privileged upbringing to a descent into a cult that profoundly affected her perception of faith and reality. The speaker recounts their journey to Nigeria to seek help from TB Joshua. The anticipation and excitement are evident as they describe booking a flight with a friend, viewing the trip as a potential transformative experience. The speaker's expectations are elevated, imagining the possibility of encountering a figure akin to Jesus. Upon arriving in Lagos, Nigeria, the speaker is struck by the unconventional setting of the synagogue. They describe an environment built on a swamp, adorned with wooden chairs scattered everywhere. However, what surprises the speaker most is TB Joshua's humility, his manner of speech, and the sincerity in his ministrations. Despite the lack of formal education and Joshua's limited proficiency in English, the speaker notes his selflessness and dedication, including cleaning the church toilets daily for 3 years. The narrative touches on TB Joshua's claim that his coming to earth was prophesied a century ago, creating an image of a man who can potentially solve the speaker's problems. The speaker highlights Joshua's investment in documenting the church's activities, particularly through VHS videos, showcasing a commitment to transparency. The uniqueness of the church's practices is emphasized, with Joshua encouraging a different and unusual approach that sets it apart from the broader Christendom. The text leaves readers with a sense of the speaker's journey, from internal struggles with identity and faith to the hope and anticipation tied to their visit to TB Joshua's church in Nigeria. The portrayal of Joshua as a humble yet powerful figure and the unconventional practices of the synagogue add complexity to the speaker's quest for answers and solutions. The speaker describes the profound impact of TB Joshua's gaze, suggesting that his eyes were enchanted and had the power to pierce into the subconscious. The speaker recounts the intense spiritual experiences during the church sessions, where people were believed to be demonically possessed and were being saved through fiery prayers in the name of Jesus. TB Joshua's spiritual power is portrayed as hypnotic, affecting people's minds, and the speaker marvels at the ability to deliver individuals with a single sentence. There's a sense of fear and awe around TB Joshua, with people speaking about him in hushed tones due to his perceived spiritual power. The speaker acknowledges that the spiritual power of TB Joshua had a profound impact on their own perception, making him seem godlike. The video then introduces Paul, a former disciple who narrates his deep loyalty to TB Joshua. Paul explains that he gave up everything for Joshua, even distancing himself from family members. He admits to viewing TB Joshua as a god and highlights the influence Joshua had on his life. Paul shares that he was one of the closest disciples, even being considered the number 2 in the synagogue church of all nations. Paul discloses that TB Joshua had specific goals and interests, including a preference for Igbo people over whites. He claims that Joshua believed God was using a black man, and Paul defends this notion, asserting that he had never seen the power of God manifest as strongly as it did in Joshua's church. The narrative takes a turn when Paul discusses the church's strategic plans to extend its influence globally. He mentions a deliberate effort to attract foreigners and the use of white individuals to enhance the church's image. Paul expresses regret for harboring racist sentiments in the past, but emphasizes that the love received from black people shifted his perspective. He speaks of the church's global reach, with attendees from various countries, and asserts that TB Joshua planned every aspect meticulously. The text concludes with the speaker expressing their excitement at witnessing the church's growth and global influence. The international visitors share their anticipation, having watched VHS tapes of the church's miracles before their visit. The atmosphere is described as celebratory, with Nigerian disciples warmly welcoming foreign visitors and making them feel special and important. The diverse experiences and perspectives shared in the text highlight the complex dynamics within TB Joshua's church, including the charismatic appeal, perceived spiritual power, and strategic expansion of the synagogue church of all nations on a global scale. The narrative continues to unravel the intricacies of life within the church compound, detailing the speaker's experience of being taken by 2 women and subjected to a communal shower. The atmosphere is portrayed as a mix of innocence and manipulation, with references to biblical imagery and the encouragement to view fellow disciples as family. The speaker recalls adopting a new identity, referred to as Sister Kara, and underscores the communal mindset, where everyone is encouraged to perceive each other as siblings in the spiritual family. The text sheds light on the restrictive nature of communication, with the speaker emphasizing the lack of personal cell phones, limited access to personal email, and the church's control over passports. The phrase, "Your past is over now," echoes a theme of severing ties with the outside world and embracing a new life within the church. The speaker provides insights into the disciple recruitment process, detailing the perceived urgency and pressure to stay within the church. There's a particular focus on the vulnerability of young and unmarried individuals, suggesting a deliberate targeting of those more susceptible to manipulation. As the narrative unfolds, the speaker describes the communal living conditions, emphasizing the sense of confinement and isolation within the compound. The vivid description of the environment, including concrete walls and a labyrinth-like layout, contributes to the portrayal of an almost surreal and controlled existence. The overarching theme is one of manipulation and control, with the speaker reflecting on the drastic transformation in their life. The coercive tactics employed by the church to maintain influence are evident, creating an atmosphere where individuals are isolated from their past lives and increasingly dependent on the church for their sense of identity and belonging. In essence, the extended narrative provides a deeper exploration of the speaker's experience within the church, delving into the psychological and emotional aspects of the manipulation, control, and isolation tactics employed by the synagogue church of all nations. The narrative unfolds with a deeper exploration of the psychological and emotional toll imposed on disciples within the synagogue church of all nations. The speaker touches upon the coercive measures taken to ensure absolute obedience, including the psychological conditioning that frames physical punishment as an honor. This manipulation not only establishes an unquestioning loyalty, but also cultivates a sense of privilege in enduring such treatment. The portrayal of TB Joshua as a figure akin to Jesus and the insistence on disciples viewing him as a direct channel to God underscores the power dynamics at play. The speaker reflects on the initial allure of being part of a divine mission, but begins to reveal the underlying control mechanisms that strip away personal autonomy. As the narrative delves into the tight grip on disciples' time and actions, it exposes the pervasive surveillance within the church. The constant monitoring through cameras and the requirement for permission to engage in basic activities create an environment of constant scrutiny and control. The mention of specific instances, such as standing up when ordered, falling asleep while standing, and the consequences of being caught sleeping, offers a poignant glimpse into the oppressive nature of life within the synagogue church. The text also touches on the church's hostility towards dissent or even expressions of fatigue. The framing of those questioning or displaying signs of exhaustion as enemies of God reveals the severity of the indoctrination within the church. This narrative thread begins to unravel the intricate web of fear, manipulation, and isolation that keeps disciples compliant. The speaker's role as an evangelist in training adds another layer to the story, emphasizing the church's strategic efforts to use Western disciples for endorsement and credibility. The text hints at the potential disillusionment and internal conflict faced by disciples who may begin to question the authenticity of their mission. As the narrative continues, it sets the stage for a deeper exploration of the emotional and psychological journey of the speaker within the synagogue church of all nations. The reader is left anticipating further revelations about the impact of such a controlled and coercive environment on individual identity, beliefs, and well-being. The speaker proceeds to detail the impact of TB Joshua's authoritarian rule on disciples' personal lives and identities. The reference to disciples being stripped of their individuality, not being allowed to marry or date, and facing constant scrutiny over their actions reinforces the cult-like nature of the environment. The narrative further explores the emotional manipulation employed by TB Joshua, who cunningly plays on the vulnerability of individuals seeking spiritual guidance. The speaker recounts instances where TB Joshua used endearing terms like daddy and created a simulated familial environment. The manipulation is highlighted as the speaker describes feeling like a perpetual child, with the prophet assuming a fatherly role. The emotional vulnerability of young disciples, eager for guidance and acceptance, is exploited to establish a form of control. As the reader is introduced to the stringent rules governing disciples' lives, the speaker delves into the disciplinary measures imposed for any deviation. The mention of physical abuse, such as slapping, being portrayed as an honor adds a layer of distortion to the concept of authority within the church. The psychological toll of such abuse is palpable, with the speaker describing the environment as one where fear and compliance reign. The text then addresses the role of disciples in building TB Joshua's envisioned empire. The labor force, composed of unpaid disciples, plays a crucial role in constructing the massive structure that symbolizes the prophet's ambitions. The contradiction between the grand plan and the lack of compensation for disciples sheds light on the exploitative nature of the system. Towards the latter part of the narrative, the speaker touches upon the racial undertones present in TB Joshua's motivations. The prophet's desire to enslave white people as a form of retaliation for historical injustices demonstrates a disturbing aspect of his ideology. The speaker's revelation of being present in a meeting where these ideas were openly discussed adds a chilling layer to the unfolding narrative. As the speaker navigates the complexities of life within the synagogue church of all nations, the text creates a sense of urgency, urging the reader to comprehend the magnitude of manipulation, control, and exploitation taking place. The testimonies collectively paint a harrowing picture of the impact on disciples' lives, instilling a profound sense of empathy and concern for those ensnared within the church's confines. This was the summary of the first part of the documentary produced by BBC News Africa. If you've gone through the material to the end, pray to the Lord for spiritual discernment and guidance to choose a healthy Christian community. God bless you. The link to the second part can be found in the video description.